Hi, and welcome to the first example for section 1 of chapter 2. In chapter 2, we are going to be examining quadratic functions. And in this first section, we are going to look at transformations to quadratic functions. Now, I want you to keep in mind that all of these transformations happen in just the same way that they do to linear functions. And what I mean by that is that the changes that you made to linear functions, such as adding or subtracting, multiplying, making a function or the input negative, they're all the same procedures that you do for quadratic functions in order to cause transformations. So before we look at this problem, let's look at an example in your journal. So here, you're going to see that for translations, which remember, that's shifting our function left and right or up and down, so horizontal and vertical translations, the way that those are made is by adding or subtracting from either your input or your entire function. So here we've got our parent function for a quadratic, f of x equals x squared. And to have a horizontal translation, we simply subtract h from our input. Now remember, h is just the amount we're shifting, either to the left or to the right. So if we are subtracting some integer from our input, that means we're shifting left or right. With vertical translations, it happens when you add a value k to your function. So remember, k is the number of units that you're shifting, and you add that to the entire function. So if you're adding a positive number, you shift up. If you're adding a negative number, you shift down. With your horizontal translations, because you're subtracting h, if you're subtracting a positive number, you move to the left. And if you're subtracting a negative number, you move to the right. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So again, remember, x minus h moves us to the left or right. F of x plus k moves us up and down. You'll get to see an example of this in just a minute. So we want to describe the transformations of our parent function represented by g of x equals the quantity of x plus 4 squared minus 1, then graph each function. We're not going to, the graph's just going to show us what it looks like, but I'm not going to go over all the steps to graph it right now. So here we go. We need to look at our function, and we notice that it's written in this format, x minus h squared plus k. So we know that we are subtracting or adding something to our input, and then we're subtracting something from our entire function. So let's identify what these shift amounts are. So first thing we need to look at, x plus 4. Well, remember, for horizontal translations, they're in the form x minus h. So we need to put it in that x minus h form so we can see exactly what we're subtracting. So let's go ahead and rewrite this to identify h and k. So here, to get x plus 4, we're actually subtracting negative 4. So x minus negative 4, and then we're adding negative 1 to get our k value. So here our h and k values are negative 4 and negative 1. Now remember, h and k, those just represent the amount that we're shifting vertically and horizontally. So now that we know what our h and k values are, let's translate those into actual transformations. So because h is a negative number, that means we're shifting to the left. So remember, minus negative 4. This is one of those that you're going to get used to seeing. When you see x plus 4, you may automatically think that you're moving to the right because it's plus 4. But remember, because we're subtracting h, this sign is actually opposite of the way you're translating. So plus 4 means you're moving 4 to the left in the negative direction. If this were x minus 4, it means you would be subtracting positive 4 and moving 4 in the positive direction to the right. So our h value is negative 4, and our k value is -1. So what that means is that we are translating 4 units to the left and 1 unit down. And here you can see our parent function, which is black, that's x squared, and our new function, our g, x plus 4 squared minus 1. It's the same curve, but it's just shifted 4 units to the left and 1 down. So again, remember, just like with our linear functions, if you're adding or subtracting to the input, that's a horizontal translation. If you're adding or subtracting to the entire function, it's a vertical translation. And with horizontal translations, you have to look at this sign right here and take the opposite of it to see which way you're moving. Again, if it's x plus a number, that means you're moving to the left in the negative direction. What I want you to do is look at these 3 problems right here. I'll zoom in just a little bit. What I want you to do is describe the transformations of x represented by each of these 3 functions. So obviously you don't have to graph them right now. I would recommend, if you want to, in your notes, just plotting them just so you can get some more practice looking at the graphs. But in the text box that comes up, I just want you to write your answers for 1, 2, and 3 right here. So describe the transformations for each of these functions from x squared. Go ahead and enter them in the text box. Please label them 1, 2, and 3 so I can easily see your answers.